The Rake. In the quiet town of Edgestone, whispers carried through the trees like a chilling breeze. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the Rake, a creature said to lurk in the shadows, waiting for darkness to swallow the last remnants of day. Many dismissed it as mere folklore, tales spun to entertain. But for 16-year-old Lizzy Harper, the legends took on a terrifying new life. It had started with an unsettling feeling. Each night, Lizzy would toss and turn, unable to shake the sensation of being watched. Her bedroom window faced the dense woods that bordered her yard, and, every so often, she swore she could see a figure lurking just beyond the trees. When she shared her fears with her best friend, Sam, he rolled his eyes, a smirk playing on his lips. "Lizzy, it's just a story. You're letting it get to your head. We should go out there tonight, prove you wrong," Sam proposed, the thrill of adventure dancing in his eyes. It was a Friday night, and with the moon hanging full and low in the sky, Lizzy reluctantly agreed. Perhaps facing her fear would finally quell the anxiety gnawing at her. The two slipped out, careful to avoid their parents' notice, armed with nothing but flashlights and a hefty dose of bravado. As they stepped into the thick foliage, the moon's glow dimmed, swallowed by the towering trees. The further they walked, the heavier the air became, saturated with the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. Lizzy felt the eyes of the woods upon her, but she pressed on, determined not to falter in front of Sam. "Look, it's just trees and bugs. You're being ridiculous," he chided, half laughing, half nervous. His bravado began to falter as the shadows thickened around them. As the night wore on, they ventured deeper, where the light of the moon flickered like a dying candle. Suddenly, Lizzy halted, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. "Sam, maybe we should go home," she suggested, her voice barely a whisper. "Nah, come on," he insisted, but something in her eyes silenced him. Just then, a chilling sound echoed through the air, a low groan, like the wind echoing through the hollow trunks of the trees. It sent a shiver down Lizzy's spine. She wanted to run, to put as much distance between herself and the noise as possible. But before she could react, Sam stepped forward, wielding his flashlight like a sword. "Lizzy, it's probably just an animal," he said, though his voice trembled slightly. He stepped ahead, casting the beam of his flashlight into the inky blackness. The light flicked across the underbrush, illuminating nothing but the scared little creatures that skittered away. But then, at the very edge of the clearing, they both saw it, a figure hunched over, its skin pale and stretched tight over its bones, its elongated fingers moving with unnatural speed. The Rake. For a moment, time stood still. Lizzy's heart thundered as her fear crystallized into reality. The creature turned, its eyes two hollow voids, its gaze piercing through the dark night and landing directly on them. It emitted a noise, a series of guttural growls that echoed like a predator warning its prey. "Run!" Lizzy screamed, adrenaline consuming her as she turned to flee. She didn't look back. She could feel the weight of the creature's gaze still latched onto her, urging her to escape. Sam followed, the sound of their panicked breaths mingling with the rustling of leaves underfoot. They dashed through the thickets, branches slapping against their faces like hands trying to catch them. But the ground trembled beneath them, as though the Rake was toying with its food, allowing them a slight head start. "Lizzy, wait," Sam called, but she was already sprinting towards the safety of the lights that glimmered from the town beyond the woods. She stumbled, losing her footing, and the momentary agony of her scraped knee was nothing compared to the terror that approached. From behind, the heaviness of breath grew louder, a rasping sound that sent her heart spiraling. The Rake was gaining on them, a specter of horror relentless in its pursuit. Just as she regained her balance, she felt a surge of clarity. "This way!" she yelled, veering from their previous path towards a narrow, familiar trail leading back to town. They skidded into the path's embrace, desperately hoping it would lead them to safety. As they burst through the tree line, into the faint glow of streetlights, Lizzy stole a glance behind her. There was nothing, only the haunting silhouette of trees standing guard over the frightful night. They reached her house, breathless and shaking. With fear coursing through their veins, they slammed the door shut behind them. What was that?" Sam panted, his eyes wide with terror. "I don't know," Lizzy replied, her voice breaking. "But we can't tell anyone. They won't believe us." They'll think we're crazy. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that night clung to Lizzy like a shroud. A sense of dread settled over her, transforming her nights into a waking nightmare. She often stared out of her window, expecting the creature to return. And it did. On particularly dark nights, when the wind howled just right, she could swear she saw it again at the edge of the woods, lurking and waiting. Always just out of sight but ever present, a reminder that fear can bind us, even when we think we have escaped. For it wouldn't be long before the Rake decided it wanted more than just a fleeting glance. Fear, after all, is a hunger that can never truly be sated.